I think that it's time that I finally plan out this entire build. Since 2023, I have been building up the city of Walstera in Minecraft. That's just over 3 years at the time of this recording, and I would say that I've made a considerable amount of progress in that time. Despite this, I've been building with zero plan whatsoever, and this has led to quite a lot of issues building up and plaguing the vision that I have for this city. So let's return to the drawing board today. Here I have an existing map of the city, which, if I'm going to be honest, looks like a complete mess right now. While I do want the city to be coastal, I think that placing on an island maybe wasn't the right call, as there's basically no potential for me to build up any less dense area, and building up countryside is out of the question. The island is also quite small, spanning roughly 2 kilometers in each direction, which really isn't big enough to build a truly impressive city. Due to this, I've decided to expand the landmass and connect it to a mainland, which as time passes I will continue to build up. The original design did have these 2 islands next to one big island, one of which I would like to keep and potentially create more of as time goes on. However, the one located to the southwest of the city, I feel would be a lot more interesting if I turned it into a peninsula like such, and the bridge can still be kept that way. So this is the finished design that I've come up with. Here is the elevation map I created with it. As you can probably tell, the city is now quite a bit more hilly, and these areas in the darkest shade of red are the new mountains that I'm adding, as I obviously had to get rid of the horribly unrealistic ones that I had before. Overall, this landscape is quite ambitious and spans roughly 8 kilometers in each direction, which I will be manually building up, hopefully in the next episode. With that out of the way, we can finally get to the interesting part of it, which is the actual city planning. I want to start with transport, most importantly the roads. While I do want to implement them to a large scale, I'm definitely not trying to overdo it. As far as I know, there are 4 types of roads in the hierarchy, with the highest capacity being the highways, then the arterial roads, the collector roads, and then the local roads. I made a bit of a mistake when building up the city at first, as for god knows what reason, I directed a huge elevated highway right through the downtown. The main reason I did this was to connect it with the business district on a separate island, which I built a huge bridge for, which in turn would only make sense if I put a highway on it because of how insanely wide it was. This was genuinely a horrific decision, and what worsens it is that I did this on the 3rd episode. Mind you, this is the 15th. This means that I revolved literally everything around it, which led to some really awkward looking areas. Overall, I think that fully demolishing the highway and filling it with some dense developments would be the best call, considering that this is where land would be the most valuable. Having no highway whatsoever would be kind of dumb honestly though, so I'm thinking that it should run along the western areas of the city. This makes sense because these areas that I've already built up are going to be relocated elsewhere either way, as they aren't really dense enough for how close they are to downtown. So yeah, the highway would fit quite well here, and it obviously makes no sense whatsoever to send a highway through the historic southern and eastern areas of the city. It also makes sense as this was the most direct pathway to the mainland. With the highways planned, we need to plan out where the arterials will run. These will be tucked away in less visible areas of the city, as to be honest they are a bit of an eyesore and also will have 4 lanes at the minimum, making them quite hard to traverse. They also aren't supposed to have too many intersections or access points, as their main purpose is to move traffic between districts and onto highways if needed. The first one of these will run basically just north of the downtown and only have a few connections to the next level of road, the connector roads. This arterial will also be sent across the bridge to the island, or now the peninsula. The thing is, I kind of already have an arterial road, which connects the downtown to this suburb over here, but this was genuinely planned horrifically, and I think this one clip will show you why. Yeah, I don't think I need to explain why this road has to go. All I'm saying is imagine the gridlock of doom and despair coming from this. However, I still do want a north-south arterial on the mainland. Basically, I've come up with a compromise. I'm going to destroy the section running from the downtown to this arterial, and then use the existing stretch going north as the second arterial road, with a decently sized roundabout joining them together. Then, on the new peninsula where the business district lies currently, I will add a large, likely 6-lane arterial going north, connecting to the highway with the interchange. For now though, that will be it, although I might add some more as time progresses. The collector roads would be next, as well as the local roads, but those are more important for the actual district planning, which I'll be doing in a separate video, so I'll say that the roads are complete for now. I want to move on to the zoning now, particularly focusing on the density of each area of the city. I have the following types of zones designated, and I have quite a lot, so if you don't care about this, just skip to this timestamp on the screen. Firstly, there's low density residential, which is like single family homes, either detached or semi-detached. Essentially, it will look like this suburb over here. Low medium density residential would mean terrace housing like such, and higher medium density would mean smaller apartment blocks. And then finally, high density is simply large apartment blocks. For commercial, I have no set zoning, as most of the commercial buildings will be cojoined with another use, so I'm going to designate them as mixed use plots. And these will simply adapt to the density of the area they're being placed in. Like for example, I would obviously build a taller, denser building in the downtown, while in a suburb, I would obviously make it shorter to blend in with the surroundings. I will properly zone each district when I plan all of them out, but for now, I just want to make a general distinction between the overall density of the city areas. So this is the density map I've created. It is quite rough, if I'm going to be honest, and can be changed over time. While it might make sense to have a huge centre and have that be the one dense part of the city, like you see in many smaller sized cities, I feel that the city would be a lot more interesting with several dense cores, and descending density away from them. What I really don't want is something like this, where the skyline goes from being dense and tall and then becomes completely flat and sparse. In the main city, you can quite visibly see the dense cores, located primarily on the southern coastal areas. You can also see this area, which is almost a separate city, but also kind of part of the same city at the same time. I don't really know how to describe it honestly, but together they make a really big metropolitan area. I think at this point in the video you can kind of realise how ambitious of a project this is. Lastly, I want to plan out the public transportation. So far in the city, we have a metro, regional rail and a singular bus stop. Yeah, I never really flashed out that idea. For now we will be sticking with those three methods, but completely rethinking them all. The rail station will definitely be kept, but significantly expanded. The mainline rail route will continue to go across the bridge, with two types of service, being a slower, more frequent local line, and a high-speed line that won't stop at all, and will solely be used to connect to other cities. The slower stopping service will essentially run as a metro line, and follow the high-speed line with adjacent tracks running above the ground. Also, I do want to construct in one way or another an above-ground service running east to west and eventually north. And all of these lines will stretch further into satellite towns and go way beyond the actual metro, which, speaking of, is so terribly planned out that it angers me. Like, this is the course of one of the lines, and I think you can spot out all the problems here yourself. I'm not going to whine on about how terrible the system is, with its oddly short trains and unrealistically sharp turns. I'm just going to replace it completely. There's not really much for me to say here, as the metro is something that I'll build up as I go along with the city build. In terms of buses, yeah, that's a job for another episode, as there is way too much to talk about in terms of those. Also, I know that this isn't really public transport, but cycling is something that will be commonplace in this city. Most people think that you need cycle infrastructure everywhere for cycling to be a functional method of transport, but that's actually far from the most efficient method. Obviously in the city centre and busy areas they will be implemented, but most local roads in less dense areas will have low enough traffic to be safe for everyone to cycle through, and they will be designated with signs and markings, with traffic prohibited on sections of them. Now, I know that this is a very basic plan and probably quite flawed, so leave your suggestions for improvement in the comments, because I definitely will need them, because I'm not experienced at all in this field. Most of the smaller details will be developed in future episodes, as this plan was simply to give an overall direction to my building for the upcoming episodes. So yeah, I'm gonna call it there. This video took a lot of time to create, so I would really appreciate it if you did subscribe. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.